you number one. The greatest days have now begun with every beat of my heart.
Connecting the community through gospel.
The new 107.9 FM, W300EB.
Macon and WDDO 980 AM.
Perry.
Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwinnett, Westbrook, and Mr. DUMAS.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwinnett, Westbrook, and Mr. DUMAS.
And good evening, and welcome to another segment of the NAACP Truth Show. I'm Willie Dumas, your host. Happy you could join us this evening. We'll be joined shortly by President Westbrooks by Skype. Hope you've had a great weekend. It's been a while since I've been back on the air. Happy to be back on the air. Had a couple of challenges to occur over the last couple of weeks. I've gotten through those with God's help, and I'm just glad to be back on the radio with you guys. Hope you had a great weekend. We woke up to some very cool temperatures this morning, down in the 20s, and that was quite a change. So I hope everybody made it through okay in this cold weather. I think it's now the season for cold weather, so we might as well expect it now from day to day. For our listening audience, I hope you're getting ready for your Christmas. Hope you've done a little Christmas shopping if you haven't done a lot. And we do hope that you have been safe and practiced safe practices while you've been out here shopping in the streets of Macon, Georgia. What we want to talk about today, of course, is some of the things that we've talked about all throughout the year, and that's the crime situation here in Macon and Middle Georgia. We've lost a number of teens to teen violence, and we just hope that you will be safe while you're out here shopping and while you're out here doing those things that you do during the holidays, that you practice some safety precautions, that you watch your surroundings, make sure you're guarding your purses, ladies, and make sure you're locking those up if you're not going to take them into the stores with you, because there are all types of criminals out here waiting to take advantage of you. And so you got to use due diligence to stay safe in this particular environment. I want to talk a little bit today about health, as we get a little further into our discussion about crime here in Macon. We do know that the election is finally over, and I know many of you have gotten sighs of relief knowing that you don't have to hear all these advertisements about who's doing this and who's doing that. And so we know that Reverend Warnock was the winner in the Senate race, and I'm sure his constituents are happy, and those who came out to vote for him are happy, and those kinds of things. But what I do want to talk about as it relates to safety here in Macon, the holidays, and all of those things. Not everyone is merry, not everyone is happy during this time of season, and some of the medical problems that we face coming up to this season, particularly, is mental health issues. I know in the news on the past week, we all know about the suicide situation that happened with DJ Twitch, I think was his stage name, on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And I know that was very shocking to myself, and I'm sure it was shocking to you, our listening audience, in that a person who seemed to have everything going for himself would take his own life. But those are some of the challenges we face, particularly this time of year. People tend to be a little more depressed than usual. Normally, around this time of the year, I would have a guest to come on, some of our psychiatrists and some of our counselors to come on and talk about depression, anxiety, and suicide, because it's this time of the year that a lot of people are saddened, either from loss of loved ones throughout the year, or just the challenge of having enough finances to buy those particular gifts that we want to give to each other. And so that becomes a mental challenge for many people. And we do want to caution our listeners that you take time for self care, that you take care of yourself. I want to give a little testimonial, if you would, on what happened with my spouse right after Thanksgiving. I was looking through the paper here just today, where Navison Health, Atrium and Navison Health, was granted a national certification for cardiopulmonary rehabilitation. And that couple of weeks ago may not have been that important to me, but when my wife experienced a mild heart attack right after Thanksgiving, I know the importance of what that means, and having the necessary tools to meet the challenges that families face when a loved one has a heart attack or stroke. For that fact, my wife and I, we were attending the Cracker Barrel restaurant Saturday morning after Thanksgiving, that weekend, and she started to have chest pains, and the next thing we knew, she was having unbearable pains, and so ambulance was called. They checked her, in the ambulance, and her blood pressure was sky high, and we had quite a bit of concern at that point, and so she was rushed to Navison Health, Atrium Health, where they determined that she had had a mild heart attack. And so, of course, time is of the essence when you have those types of situations that occur. And so the doctor said we got her there in the nick of time and at the right time to get the care she needed in order to get through that. And so I saw the article that was commending them as far as getting a certification in cardiopulmonary rehabilitation. And I just thought about the wonderful people there at Navison and Atrium Health Hospital, and the care and the concern that they gave to my wife. I certainly appreciate that. She ended up in the Heart Tower for about 3 days, for about a 3-day stay. And part of that stay also included me in that process. And so, those of you who have loved ones that have been in the hospital before, you know how inconvenient that can be, trying to get sleep in a hospital setting when the doctors and the nurses are coming in round the clock. But we got through that challenge. She's home doing fine and doing well. As a matter of fact, she returns to work on tomorrow. And so, um, just to note that this time of the year, um, these kinds of illnesses can occur because of anxiety, because of stress, because of over worrying about situations. And so, even though, it's the holiday season, let's not get too carried away in that it affects our health and it affects our well-being in order to perform our duties at work, and even our chores and things that we do at home. And so, self-care is very important. Don't let things get so bad that you don't seek help. Don't always think we can handle things on our own. It's okay to be able to seek help and to seek legal advice about certain things that happen and occur in our bodies. We've got to be vigilant about that. And I believe that's one way that we can have a safe holiday, season as we go into not only this Christmas weekend, but also into the new year, that we start to look at our diets, that we, eat healthy and do drink plenty of water and fluids, and checking our blood pressures on a regular basis. Those of you who suffer with hypertension, and just making sure that you're doing the things you need to do to stay safe during this holiday season. As it relates to the gun violence in our community, we've noticed that nobody's safe, no matter where you live, no matter where you reside. No one's safe. There was just a shooting over the weekend where a security guard was shot, and I don't believe they even have found the perpetrator at this point in time. And then later, the individual became deceased, and so you never know where violence is going to strike. And so, because of that, we've got to keep iterating and keep echoing the fact that uh, people need to settle their disputes among themselves, not with weapons, but by compromise, by talking, or moving away, walking away. I think there's an initiative here in the city called Walk Away, and just walking away, you can calm down, you can gather your thoughts and not do something drastic and something hasty that can cost someone their life. And so we want to continue to echo that sentiment, that the violence cease in this city. It's going to take much prayer, and it's going to take I just say much prayer, because everything else, it doesn't seem to be working. A lot of the guns that people possess, they don't really get them legally anyway. And so, even if you um, put a stop on the sale of different weapons, criminals don't always get their weapons the way we conventionally get them. Either they're breaking in someone's house or breaking in someone's car, taking their particular weapon and committing a lot of the crimes that we see happen. Our hearts go out to all of the families that have lost loved ones this year due to violence, and particularly teen violence. Just a number of teenagers that have under the age of around the age of 14 and above, that have lost their lives to violence. So our schools have a big shoe to fill as it relates to safety for our students. We had an incident, of course, early in the year where someone walked on the Southwest campus with a firearm, and so that particular situation could have ended a very different way had the law enforcement not intervened in the way that they did. And so, these things that used to happen in other states and used to happen to other cities are now plaguing our community here in Macon. And so we've got to do what we can do to make certain we keep ourselves safe, keep our children safe. Of course, I know parents are very concerned when they send their children off to school, um, thinking that they're going into a safe environment, which, being in the school. But when children are trying to sneak in weapons on the campuses and through their book bags and these kinds of things, it makes it a very unsafe environment. And so kudos go to our campus policemen who have a very hard job at times as far as trying to keep schools safe by making certain our teenagers don't bring anything on the campus that could be considered a weapon and that could considerably cause harm to other students. And so we have to be um, very mindful of our children when they leave home, what they're putting in their backpacks, what they're putting in their coats and those kind of things. Now, since it's getting a lot colder outside, we've got to make sure they're not hiding things in their jackets and their pockets and their backpacks, just to make sure that other folks are safe. Another problem we've experienced in the city and throughout Macon and even in Warner Robins and some of those areas are pedestrians. We know it gets darker a lot earlier now, and so you got to look out for these pedestrians that are sometimes not wearing the most reflective clothing at night. And so you got to make sure you kind of look out for them so they don't get ran over. I know there was an incident on, I believe it was Jeffersonville Road or out in that area where someone was ran over twice. This particular pedestrian was hit by one vehicle and then later hit by another vehicle. And so we've got to look out for each other on these dark streets. A lot of these streets in our city don't have the proper lighting to keep things like that from happening. You visually, it's hard to see people, particularly when they don't have reflective gear on. And so they wearing dark clothing. It's dark, and the possibility of incidents like that happening increase because of that. We've also even noted that in the last couple of weeks or so, where individuals have gotten ran over, different pedestrians, because they haven't been seen. And so we got to look out as, you got to be sort of proactive, out here on the roads and even the streets. I believe City Council is the county commissioners rather will be meeting on tomorrow, discussing purchasing lighting for different areas and that have had complaints of being poor lit areas, and they will actually vote on getting lighting for those areas. One of the worst things can happen is to have a place that's not properly doesn't have the proper lights, because it increases crime. It also increases the possibility of someone being injured by a motorist. And so those are key things that really need to happen in this city. We know that the roads are being constructed all around the city, the interstates, and a lot of times you can't think as quickly as you need to when you approach certain areas, because they're not as familiar as they have been in the past, simply because they've caused some detours and other construction on those roads. So take your time, when you're going to various places. Don't get in such a hurry. And it seems like people get in a big hurry around the holidays. They speed and go a little faster than they usually do, and in doing so can cause a lot of accidents and a lot of mishaps that don't have to occur. And so when you're out there driving, take your time. Don't look out for the other guys. Sometimes we're very selfish in the way we drive. We're thinking about where we need to get and what time we need to get there, and not looking at what type of accidents we can actually cause if we're not careful in how we do that approach. And so this holiday season, we want to be safe. We want to be vigilant. We want people to enjoy their families and enjoy their loved ones, and take that time to help other people. That's something that the NAACP, um, we always stand by the fact that the community, is a family. We have a family in the community, that we look out for the needs of the community. And as an individual, you can do the same thing. Everyone can touch one to make a difference in everyone's life, to make sure that, people have a good, warm shelter, that they have um, a warm meal that they can, partake of and enjoy their families and those kinds of things during the holidays. Another big issue for our country, of course, is immigration. And I know most of you have probably followed the fact that we're overcrowded our borders, that people want to come to America. They want to experience the freedoms and all the activities that we enjoy. But how many more can we actually afford to have in this country? There's been a lot of debate from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party as to what to do about our borders. Should our borders be closed? Uh, you know, who can come through, who can't come through, and there's a lot of debate, of course, about that. But I'm sure you've noticed that the immigration problem in the United States is a growing concern, in such a way that I believe Republican governors, particularly the governor in Texas and the governor in Florida, were actually sending immigrants to Democratic governor cities, and so that they can feel the blunt of what it's like to have a lot of immigrants in your particular city. I see President Westbrooks has joined us, and feel
Yes.
feel free to join in our discussion. We were talking about immigration and how it's affecting, all of
Yeah.
these. Um, it seems like it's a big problem, and it may end up being a problem for Georgia. We don't know.
Well, you know, a lot of times when people like that come over, they do get the, entitled to benefits because they look at them as they're labeled as refugees, or have in which they are actually entitled to benefits here in the United States. So, um, I think Georgia has already seen some of
The
some of
effect.
that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, when you look at the fact that a particular city being the entry point, if that, I mean, not city, but that particular state being an entry point for immigration, they get the blunt of the effects of what happens. And
Right.
so by them, particularly the governor of Texas, he feels that other states should bear some of that same burden, and so they've been sending people on a one-way bus ticket, to other cities, so that they can have, a place outside of Texas,
Right.
to
And
actually
I
reside.
guess, yeah, and some of those people that are coming over are actually, like I say, are coming over legally. They're coming over as refugees, or considered refugees. So everybody that's coming over is not actually illegally coming over.
Right, and a number of those are probably from Ukraine, is uh,
Right. Right.
seeking asylum and those kinds of
Right.
things.
Right. Well,
And
I wanted to ask you, Mr. Dumas, about, have you? I don't know if you hit on or what you talked about, but you've heard about the, you know, uh, uh, but they're trying to actually propose this in the legislature session in January to where they don't have runoff elections, and I know they're gonna probably be plenty of lawsuits filed. So
Exactly.
they're saying it's so expensive. We've been doing this for I don't know how many years, and so now they wanna stop you from having the and like a runoff election. I guess that's because they're saying it costs so much money to and run off, and they don't have the can't pay the people or whatever. So we've been doing this for years. So I don't know. I know it's gonna be I'll be retired by then, so I want to make sure get a chance to sit in this session that they're gonna be discussing this.
Right, because it can be looked upon in two ways. It can be a political move because of who was elected. Um,
Right.
sometimes you look at these things and you say, well, why is it necessary now? As opposed to other times and other candidates. And so
Hmm.
I'm sure that's going to make for a lot of political fodder in the upcoming, year, even coming up to the presidential election,
Yeah, I
2020.
think voting should be I think should be done by the people. The people the voters
Right,
decide who they want in that in a position, not some computer or but that's the purpose of having the right to vote. The people should decide who they want who they want as their candidate, or who it still should be left up to the people. But we will see. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of backlash regarding that. Yeah.
exactly. Because when you look at, I guess they could look at it from the standpoint of having to pay employees to do those recounts, and then if they're audited, which I don't know if this particular election was the runoff was audited as well, then those workers have to come in probably, I guess, on the weekends or whatever, or in the extra time to make up to actually do that work, because it's like you're doing double and triple work.
Well, I think that if we didn't we spent a lot of money um investigating a election that
Right,
they say was stolen. We people spent bukus of money on something that they know didn't happen. So now all of a sudden you wanna, it's cost costly for you to have a runoff election. Well, you know, no, we don't spend a lot of money doing stuff that didn't make
right,
sense. So yeah,
right.
that
So
would be the challenge. We spent a lot of money doing recounts and all of this when we know the election was stolen.
right, and one of the big things that will come out, I think, today, either today or tomorrow, if the insurrection committee is actually going to recommend any type of legal charges for President Trump. I think that
Mhm.
decision will come out today, I believe, or either tomorrow.
Well, what we're seeing now, is like he's actually trying to start another insurrection. You have to listen at the choice of words that he used. We may
Right.
be facing, could be facing another one. Um, if you listen to the choice of word, he's kind of like he's telling people to do that again. So um, it's just nonsense. It's just crazy. We just gotta uh, pay attention. Just I do plan to be in the session in January to
Uh,
see. Yeah.
absolutely. I think I probably want to tag along on that one, um, because the state of Georgia has been spotlighted, all through the election. Um,
Yeah, ever since the presidency election, really, cause Georgia turned
turned blue.
Georgia hadn't won Georgia had not won, a Democrat had not run an election in about 20 years, um had not won a Democratic election in 20 years. So Georgia was in the spotlight. We've been in the spotlight since then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of people were not real clear on was the amount of time that the Senator Warnock will actually serve. Um,
Right,
and even it had it gone the other way, how long that candidate would have served in that particular office, and
right, right.
it was kind of mind blowing to a lot of people, but that was the importance. It showed the importance of this particular election, and how it's gone.
Right.
But also, when we look at the House in particular and the numbers, you've got some people that are jumping ship. And I thought that was quite interesting, that they
Yeah.
would take that role when the party that elects you, elects you as for the party you represent. And
Yeah,
then
your constituency, yeah, and they could have a backlash of your,
right,
people that you are representing, how they gonna, you could not get that seat back again.
exactly.
So you have to look at all that when you make decisions like that. But, you know, I just think about, just think about the fact of voting, how people still are not getting it. And I guess it's all about still, I say, goes back to educate the community, educating our young people that are coming up, because like I say, they still have this mentality where they don't think that their vote count, but they don't actually know the history. And if you don't know the history of voting,
Right,
then you can't appreciate why people fight so hard and why we um, uh, push the fact of every person having the right to vote. They don't understand that because they weren't in that time, and if they haven't been educated on that, then the only thing they see is what's happening today.
right. And I think it's important, and then, when you try to teach, there are certain things they're trying to keep from teaching our young people.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so, it's a fight, it's a battle on every turn, because you got to fight that they can get the education and get the information. You have to fight for them to get it. And then, you got to also fight to push them to try to receive it. And so it becomes, uh, quite challenging for those of us who came up during the civil rights era, to let the younger folks know the importance of what they're able to do and why they're able to do it.
A lot of times I say people don't appreciate what they have until they lose it, and I just hope we don't go back there. It's losing our right to vote. But like I said, you know, they don't understand why we fight so hard to make sure that people have the right to vote as a tool
Connecting the community through gospel.
The new
that you
107.9
use,
FM, W300EB.
Macon
So,
and WDDO
we
980
just got to
AM.
continue
Perry.
to
Macon.
You don't
educate
ever
our
have to be
people.
stranded with a flat tire. Bubba's
So,
Mobile Tire and Repair
we wanna
Service
wish everyone a
LLC.
Merry
24-hour
Christmas.
roadside assistance. They service.
Also, and a Happy New Year.
Absolutely. Well, our time is up. And so we thank you, President Westbrooks, for all the work you do here in the community with NAACP. We thank our listening audience. We pray that everyone will have a safe and happy Christmas and New Year. And we're ready to come back with the new year strong, pushing registration, pushing voting, and also pushing for the rights of justice for all. And so I'm Willie Dumas, your host, along with President Westbrooks. I hope you have a great week and a safe weekend.
Thank you.
Caring for an elderly or disabled family member is